Kia ora, welcome to 710 Sessions. I'm your host, DayzOnDaze. Thank you very much for joining us. In this session, I talk with Dr. Julian Buchanan from Harm Reduction Coalition Aotearoa. We discuss your body autonomy, teenage girls being strip searched for cannabis, and who should be allowed to walk up and down stairs. All of this to show the hypocrisies and who really stands to profit from this war on drugs. Have a listen. Awesome. So yeah, welcome to the session, Dr. Julian Buchanan. Yeah.
That's me. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Awesome choice. So I had a quick look because you've got a lot of letters after your name. So correct me if I'm wrong, you're a doctor of social work?
Yeah, shall I go?
Yeah.
I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor of philosophy. So I've done a PhD.
Cool.
Did my PhD by publication via doing lots of research. All my research was qualitative research, and all the research looked at the lived experience of people who got into difficulties with drugs. So I'm also a qualified social worker. So I wanted to become a probation officer, a social worker. So I qualified as a social worker in the UK, and I did a master's in social and community work. So that's me.
Okay. And so how long have you been in New Zealand?
15 years now. Yeah. So I've got citizenship, and I love being here. Yeah.
Okay. And does, I guess being in New Zealand will relate part of partly to the conversation, but in general, what we're talking about is kind of a worldwide issue, mainly, isn't it?
It is a worldwide issue. Yeah, that's right. The whole drug policy and the war on drugs has got a very global united front. Almost every government adheres to the same propaganda and misinformation, and it's led by the UN, the UN CND and the UN ODC. Yeah.
Wow. So you've just said this is led by the UN, the war on drugs, the everything.
Yeah. The UN ODC set about with the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs in 1961. So they then created this list of what they called narcotic drugs, and narcotic generally means stuff that makes you sleepy, which obviously is a complete nonsense for a whole pile of stimulant drugs like methamphetamine, cocaine, caffeine, whatever. And the drugs, they said, have got no medicinal value. So that was back in 1961, and so the list didn't make any sense. And at that time, very heavily, people were using tobacco and alcohol and caffeine, particularly tobacco. So the drugs on the list are less risky than the drugs that they were happy to peddle and promote.
Right.
So it was really solidified globally by the Reagan and the President Nixon war on drugs.
Totally. I always
And then
blame those two.
later Reagan carried it on with Thatcher and stuff. Yeah,
Right.
but the war on drugs from Nixon was driven by racism and by a desire to find a way of attacking and disrupting the anti-Vietnam hippie movement who were smoking cannabis and stuff, and finding a way to dismantle and disrupt the civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King. And so that movement carried on, and it was causing a problem. So they found a way by having the war on drugs, which was to then arrest and disrupt people from those two different communities.
Totally. So why do you think the hippies were? Why do you think drugs appeal to hippies?
I'm sorry, I missed your question there. Sorry.
Why do you think drugs, cannabis and whatnot, LSD? Why do you think that appeals to hippies? To the hippie movement?
Yeah, it appeals to people and it still does to the same groups today, because they're using drugs to enhance their experiences. So people want to enjoy music, they want to enjoy art, they want to enjoy socializing together, and drugs like ecstasy, drugs like LSD, cannabis, and to some extent heroin as well, all can enhance the experience that people are having. And later, when I was working as a probation officer, I was in the 1980s, mid 1980s, following deindustrialization and decline in the heavy industries of coal mining and shipyards and factories like Tate and Lyle, Dunlop's, Meccano. And they were in the areas where I worked. But what I wanted to make the link with is that the people, when there was a heroin explosion, they called it a heroin epidemic, where I was working in the UK in the mid 80s, those people were not hippies. They were working class people who were using drugs not to enhance their life, but to blot out and cope with life.
That's what I was going to say. So yeah, we've got multiple different types of users here.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got the escapism and stuff, which is often associated with it, but then we've got the enhancement and whatnot. So what do you say to the people that say, oh, you should be able to read a book, you should be able to go to the movies, you should be able to go to the museum without needing drugs, you know?
Well,
what do you
it's
need
not that
to
people need
enhance?
drugs. It's people should have the freedom to use drugs. The people who say stuff like that are themselves starting the day with a caffeine hit, and they are themselves having a whiskey or a glass of wine to wind down in the evenings. Now, I don't say to those people, you should be able to start the day without your coffee. You should be able to have a break without having a cigarette. You should be able to get to sleep without having a glass of wine. So a lot of this stuff is prejudicial and ill-informed and full of hypocrisy. So that we are all using drugs. I actually have never used an illicit drug in my life, but I do use legal drugs. So I am a drug user.
Okay.
I make my own beer, and I drink plenty of wine and stuff. I have caffeine often. I've not used tobacco, but I'm a drug user. So it's hypocritical, this business of why can't you do this without using drugs?
So we've got to touch on the safety. Until you mentioned like tobacco, can I just clarify something with you? Do you know if tobacco in itself is safe? If I grow a tobacco plant by itself, don't put any rat poison in it, and smoke it, is it just the carcinogen from the smoke? Like, is tobacco safe?
The smoking isn't safe. It's the tar and the smoking that's not safe. But nicotine is relatively safe. Nothing is safe. So we're always talking about reducing risk or making things safer.
Yes.
Nothing is safe. Water is not safe. If you keep drinking water, it will kill you. If you drink too much water, and I don't know if you remember, but there's the game machine called the Wii. Are you familiar?
Oh, yeah, I've got away,
Xbox
totally.
and PlayStation.
Yep.
And there was a
Safer.
competition in the US that you need to hold your water without peeing, and all these contestants were drinking water, and the one who could not pee and wet their pants won the Wii station, but one of them died from doing it, because if you keep drinking water, your brain expands. And there was the case in the UK in the 80s, late 80s, and maybe early 90s, of a woman called Leah Betts, who was the daughter of a police officer. And there was a big campaign saying just one E. She took an ecstasy tablet and she died in hospital. And the front pages of the newspapers had a colour photograph of Leah Betts in colour with tubes lying in the hospital, and she died. And all the posters And interestingly, part of the poster was funded by the Red Bull industry. So part of this poster was partly funded by Red Bull, and it had a black and white picture of Leah Betts in hospital with the tube in, and she obviously died, and it said just one E, that's all it takes. Well, actually, when they looked into why Leah Betts died, Leah Betts was celebrating her birthday party at home, and she was drinking loads of water because she knew that when you take ecstasy,
Yep.
you can lose sense of
Yep.
your own hydration
Yeah,
levels.
yeah, yeah, totally. Something to
And
keep an
so
eye
she
on.
was drinking loads of water, and it was partly the water that expanded her brain, and that's what killed her. It wasn't, and she had actually, it wasn't just one E. She'd taken ecstasy before, and it was more than one ecstasy, but it was largely the overconsumption of water. So
That's okay.
it's a bit of a digression in one
No,
sense. What
because
I'm
when you
giving you,
started saying that, I was like, he's like, water. What are you going on about? But you've totally backed this up by with
yeah, yeah. Look,
yeah,
I'm only interested,
anything
as I
can be
say, I don't,
dangerous.
I'm not a user of illicit drugs or prohibited drugs,
Yeah,
but I'm passionate about this because it's an issue of injustice, and
yeah,
it's an issue around misinformation and a massive vested interest.
yeah,
This regime is held together by vested interest.
yeah. Okay. So
So
sorry.
just to quickly round that conversation off, is
Absolutely.
that nothing is safe, and you can die from salt, you can die from water, you can. So we have to be aware of whatever we're taking.
Mm.
But there's nothing that's illegal that is so risky that it shouldn't be legalized. But prohibition wouldn't work anyway. Prohibition does absolutely no benefit whatsoever for any drug. And so the more risky a drug is, the more reason to legalize it. And the reason why you
Ooh.
legalize it is because you regulate it.
Okay.
So you tell me what you think the most risky drug is. You probably say methamphetamine. It is actually alcohol, really, but
I would have said heroin or something, or
or
fucking
heroin. Yeah,
crocodile
sure.
tears, or one of those Vice documentaries about a fucking just evil drug that turns you
Yeah,
into fucking, Yeah.
but yeah, but most of it's propaganda.
Hmm.
So, like, say heroin. If heroin is underground, then people aren't taking heroin. They're taking all sorts of crap that it's mixed with.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not able to check what the purity is. So
Yeah,
they've
so
no
bring it
idea
out
of
of
the
the dark
purity.
into the
They've
light. Allow testing. Allow it to be. Yeah.
we allow it to be properly managed.
There you go.
We allow it to be regulated
There you
so that when I drink my alcohol, I know exactly if I'm driving, I will have one beer.
go.
But
Okay.
if I don't know whether that beer is 4% alcohol or 40% alcohol, then I'm not safe. And if I've been, say, doing I've been out for a run and I neck back a pint of alcohol that was 4%, I'd be okay. If I neck back a pint of alcohol that's 50% alcohol, it would probably kill me.
Yeah.
And alcohol does kill people. So we read, on a regular basis of some poor kid who's having a birthday party, who's 18 or whatever, and they drink far too much and it's a poison.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you drink alcohol and it poisons you, there's not much they can do. If you take heroin and you're completely overdosed, we can give you naloxone and it would reverse the overdose nearly all the time.
Wow.
So, but if you've taken alcohol, all we can do is try and pump it out your stomach.
Yeah.
So alcohol's a poison. And if you took pure heroin
Hmm.
uh, every day and you injected, say you built your tolerance up and you injected 2 grams of heroin, and you did that every day for 10 years, and then your mate is taking a bottle of whiskey every day for 10 years, your body would not be permanently damaged taking the heroin. That other person's body taking a bottle of whiskey, the organs of their body would be damaged. Heroin doesn't damage your body. It can cause constipation. It can stop you having your periods. It can have temporary impacts on you. Obviously, if you took far too much of it and you hadn't developed a tolerance, it would depress your breathing and you could die. But you're not dying through poison. And if you developed your tolerance, the same as alcohol, develop your tolerance, you'd be okay with it. But alcohol in large consumptions will damage the organs of your body, your heart and your brain and your liver.
What
Whereas
about
heroin does
ecstasy,
not damage your
LSD,
body.
ones like that? Are they damaging the body? Do you know?
Say again?
Can you hear me all right? Do I need to move my mic slightly?
A little bit nearer. I've
Yeah.
got my volume on full, yeah, but I'm struggling a little bit, yeah. Thank you.
There we go. That might be better, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd rather not go on to all the different drugs because I'm
No, of
not
course not.
really an expert. I'm not a medical doctor. I've worked prescribing drugs. I've worked closely with the clinic, but really my greater interest is in relation to drug policy and what we should do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this is where Harm Reduction Aotearoa comes into it, because this is how I've come across you on Instagram, HRCA. So yeah, do you mind telling us a little bit about what's going on there?
I'd love to tell you a lot about it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Harm Reduction Coalition Aotearoa, it's a coalition. It pulls together anybody from any background who's interested in addressing the issues that we face in relation to drugs. HRCA believes that prohibition poses greater harms to the public than what drugs do. The coalition is committed to rescinding the Misuse of Drugs Act. The Misuse of Drugs Act was reviewed by the Law Commission, and they spent 4 years, the New Zealand Law Commission, they spent 4 years reviewing the Misuse of Drugs Act. Their first recommendation that they made in their weighty reports, and this isn't a group of users, it's not a group of radical people or liberal people. This is a group of very conservative with a small c, academics and specialists from different fields, from law, from academia, and they looked at the Misuse of Drugs Act and they said that the Misuse of Drugs Act should be rescinded and replaced with a new law based under health, not under criminal justice. So we fully support that proposal, and we want to see an end of prohibition altogether. We want to see all drugs legalized for adult consumption. So all drugs can be cultivated, produced, or possessed by any adult for their own personal use. We believe in your bodily autonomy, that it's your body and what you do with your body is your choice. But the greatest harm that's being meted out to the people of Aotearoa is caused by law enforcement and by prohibition. Because as I illustrated before, under prohibition, people don't know what they're taking. They don't know the strength of what they're taking. They're having to buy these drugs underground. They're having to use them in secret in dodgy places. They're having to keep their use under wraps and not let people know about it. If they do get into difficulties, they're less likely to talk about it. They're less likely to phone an ambulance, and they endure loads of stigma and discrimination. So the package of harm that's caused by prohibition is massive.
Absolutely.
And we can reduce a lot of the harms and risks associated with drug use. We can't eliminate them, but the worst and most worrying drug of all is alcohol. And we found a way to live with alcohol. But really, HRCA, we would want everybody to have a lot more healthy choices than alcohol.
Okay, one thing, and agreed, 100%, 100% agreed. But one thing that caught my attention there was you said anyone could produce and possess and blah blah blah. Does that mean I can have a meth cook in my garage? Like, oof,
No,
dangerous.
no, it doesn't. It means it means theoretically you could, but the reason for saying, let me just step back a step really and explain that prohibition doesn't generally often impact privileged white people. It generally tends to target Maori people and target poor people, people in chronic need or ethnic groups, people who ethnically appear different.
Can you provide proof of, like, I'm not going to disagree with you. I don't think
Sure,
anyone's going
yeah.
to disagree with you there, but can
I'm
you
happy
actually
to have a
give us
debate.
stats and
It's
shit
all
on that?
cool.
Yeah, that we can actually, and be like, holy shit, like, here's the proof. The proof is in the, like, right here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, the proof is in all the arrests.
Okay.
You look at the people who are using drugs, and you look at the people how they're stopped and searched, and whether they are arrested. I mean, one of the proof here in Aotearoa is about, I'm not sure how many years ago, maybe it's about 8 or 9 years ago, a decision was made to there was some sort of headlines in our media saying possession of drugs is going to be decriminalized. And as it got through into legislation, it got diluted, and they changed the law to say that possession will be decriminalized, but that it's up to the police, they've got discretion. So the police have now got discretion not to arrest somebody for possession of drugs. They only arrest somebody for possession if they think it's in the public interest. But if they think the person could get help or they need help, they won't necessarily arrest them. But essentially, the law, we didn't decriminalise drugs. We gave the police discretion. Now, if you look at the figures, what's happened since then, the arrests for Pākehā have gone down for possession of drugs. And the New Zealand Drug Foundation have produced some data on this, which shows that for Maori, the proportion of Maori being arrested for possession is going up. But this is not new. This is happening across the globe, and this is another global problem. So in the UK, if you're black, you're more likely to get arrested and pulled and stopped and searched. And if you look at the prison population of Aotearoa has got 51% of the people in there are Maori. But Maori only make up about 15% of the population of the country. Wow. So how does 15% of the population make up 51% of the prison population? And an awful lot of cases in prison are drug related.
And we've got the data, and you've done it, you've read it,
Yeah, and look, if this goes online or whatever and people want more data, I can give you links and stuff. I'd be more than happy. HRCA believes in evidence-based drug policy.
Yes.
This is where we're coming from. Yes. We want policies to be based on evidence, experience, and research. They should not be based on vested interest of the pharmaceutical industries or the alcohol industries or the caffeine industries. And people should have the freedom to choose. So people are being punished and for not making choices which are actually healthier than the choice I'm making of alcohol. I'm choosing alcohol, but really it's not a good choice.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to put morals against money. And I think everyone knows who wins that battle. Like we're a world of Elon Musks and fucking,
And that comes back to HRC again in terms of our strategy, because
what is the strategy?
For 50 years, the drug issue hasn't been taken to the public. For 50 years, most people in relation to drugs have been afraid to have this debate in public.
Yes.
And they've generally gone only largely because of the brainwashing that's happened. The people in the public are so triggered that in the past, like, they'd say, "What? Are you saying that people should be allowed to use any drug?"
Yeah.
And then there'd be a huge noise from the crowd, and then people would backtrack and say, "Oh, no. I wouldn't want to legalize methamphetamine or heroin, but I would." And I've got the arguments, and I believe the evidence is there. And I also believe there's a moral high ground there too. But just to link to your comment you made, which is money's going to win,
Yeah.
is that the vested interest, and on the HRC website, I think we've got about 20 groups who benefit from prohibition, and they are powerful groups, and they have political benefits or financial benefits from keeping prohibition. And that's why if we keep bypassing the public as we have done and going and asking for inquiries or law commissions or reviews or going to the UN, so all the countries and New Zealand joined them about 10 years ago, send people across to the UN. So all the drug reformers and the drug workers, they have like some representatives, and they go to the UN. They have a meeting every year, once a year, called the UNCND, and all the reformers get together, as well as all people from other countries with different views on drugs, and they just talk and talk and talk. And I think it's now the 53rd or the 54th meeting.
Oh,
So
we've seen
50
what the
years
UN
it's been
does. They
happening.
talk and they tell people that they're war criminals and nothing fucking happens.
That's exactly, and hardly anything ever changes.
It's horrible.
So our approach is a bottom-up approach,
Okay.
because if you take this to the politicians have got loads of big money and pressure,
Totally.
and an issue like this has got to be led. The politicians are not going to lead this issue and say, hey guys, this is what we should be doing, because it's in their interest not to do it.
Okay.
So we've got to get a groundswell. We've got to persuade the public to that this is a corrupt issue.
Okay.
This is an issue that is damaging our children.
Oh, damn
This
straight.
is an
They
issue
know
which
it.
is changing the relationship between the police force and the community. This is an issue which is a racist issue that's locking up people. There's loads of different angles on this. We need to take it to the public, and so eventually there's a huge groundswell, and the politicians will have to listen because they'll be worried about not getting elected.
Okay. So
And I know that's a long way round, but
No.
we've had
I'm hearing
50
this.
years
I'm hearing this.
of reviews and taking things to the UN.
So Julian, name names if you're able to, and don't if you can't. Who's in the Harm Reduction Coalition? What kind of people have you got in your coalition with you? Have you got a lawyer?
Sure, yeah. We're a relatively new organisation.
Yeah, I see that.
We existed because we're an activist organisation. We're not funded by anybody.
No, and we'll get to that as well.
So we can say what we want, and we are free, and we are independent.
Brilliant.
And a lot of the other organisations feel a little bit uncomfortable about talking about legalisation, whereas we can speak out.
Oh, brilliant.
Who's with us? We've got organisations who have joined.
Okay.
So we've got a feminist organisation called the Weaving House. We've got Odyssey, which is a drug treatment provider.
Rehab.
Rehab, yeah. We've got because they can see the harm. They're realising the harm that is being created by prohibition.
Yep.
We've got Needle Exchange.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yes, so we've got ADO, we've got the Needle Exchange from Wellington, we've got the exchange from ADO from up north. There's a list actually of them all on our website.
Have you got a medical doctor in amongst there?
Is there a medical doctor? I don't think we've got a medical doctor on there at the moment. I'm not too sure, to be honest, because I haven't gone through all the members. We have had around 110 people who've joined up. Yes, there have been. When we launched, we set up a letter to the government.
Yeah.
And the letter to the government said we want to legalise all drugs. And we had lots of medical doctors who signed that letter.
Okay. Because what I'm kind of getting at here is that we can help create that groundswell. 100%. All the people out here can go and talk to blah 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 blah. If we know full well we've got medical doctors, we've got doctors of philosophy and psychology and social work, and we've got this.
Yes.
We're both backing each other up.
We have a very diverse range of people supporting us.
Brilliant.
Yes, so we are not a user organization. We've got lots of people who use drugs as members.
Yeah.
But we've also got we've got loads of different people. And in terms of the support with the letter we sent, that was supported by lots of doctors and professors, as well as lots of people from different backgrounds. So
Awesome.
unlike other organizations, we're not delivering a service.
No.
And we promote harm reduction, but we draw together. My neighbours have signed up to HRCA, and they're a retired couple who who understand the issues. We want to draw a broad base here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that. And it's to change laws. It's to like what you're trying to achieve is law change, is more freedom for the people, more realistic laws and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got 7 objectives, which I can list you. I could read them out if you want me to.
Yes,
but
because some people
website.
won't go to the website, but they'll be listening to this in the background. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, you want me to give you our what we're about, eh?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so we've got 7 objectives. The first one is to establish cross-party and non-partisan support to end drug prohibition. So we're not going to be aligned to a particular drug, and we're not going to be aligned to a particular political party, and we're not going to be aligned to a group of people who are pro trying to legalize cannabis or whatever. We want to have a broad-based support to end prohibition, as opposed to, well, my drug is a herb or my drug's not like their drug. Prohibition is the monster, and so that's the first one: is to rescind and end the prohibition. So it means we need to scrap the Psychoactive Substances Act, and we need to scrap the Misuse of Drugs Act.
Actually, just Misuse of Drugs Act in the bin, no longer exists.
Yeah, and the Psychoactive Substances Act.
Ooh, boy. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what we would do, I'll give you. Another point we've got. Another objective is to promote a new Psychoactive Drugs Act managed by health that regulates all aspects of supply. And this includes the psychoactive substances that are currently legal. So we're looking for a new drug law which looks after caffeine, alcohol, pharmaceuticals.
So you throw that one in the bin, but it's instantly replaced with a new one.
It is. Well, not instantly. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but it's managed by health. It's not about being. You can.
Okay.
Look, if I do something with my body that isn't healthy, I can't be arrested for it, can I? So we want the law to be the same, managed under health. So it's about social care and health.
Cool.
It's not about being illegal or ever being. The police would have no role, which is why we went back. Maybe I didn't answer your question earlier on, actually, about production. The reason for getting rid of is we want to take the police out the equation completely in terms of your body and your life.
Has meth shed my
production
fire?
Could be done. Sorry, you go ahead.
I mean, if the neighbour has a meth shed and blows it up, that's dangerous for me, though.
Yeah, that's right. So there would be regulations.
Okay, cool.
So it wouldn't be a police matter, but it'd be a regulation matter. So you can have regulations. I go and make beer, but there's regulations saying how much I can make.
If something goes down, police will get involved to be like, hey, you didn't follow these regulations.
Well, ultimately,
Cool.
but most things are like almost civil matters.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if somebody doesn't look after their children, it's a social care matter. The social services get involved. You ultimately would ring the police, but the first point of call is health and social care.
Yes. Okay.
So,
That makes
so
more
but
sense.
but but the only way I can imagine would be if people are producing things which need careful controls. And so, but eventually there would be social societies and clubs, and there would be equipment that people could purchase, and maybe people would go and do things. I've in the past I used to go to Wellington to the occasional brewer, and they had all the equipment there, and I'd make my 40 litres of alcohol, the most dangerous drug of all, but not the most dangerous to produce. But I had all the equipment and I did it under supervision. Well, maybe you could do the same with methamphetamine.
Wow.
Now that seems a long way off for people's
It's pretty radical.
headspace at this
I hear
point
what
in
you're saying.
time.
But yeah.
But methamphetamine, if people are afraid of it, let me explain that methamphetamine in various forms is already prescribed and given to people on a daily basis. It doesn't lead to them attacking people or losing their teeth or having a meth face.
You're
A
talking
lot
about
of that
ADHD meds and
stuff.
stuff, yeah?
Yeah, people have got ADHD and stuff. That's right.
Yeah.
Pure methamphetamine can be prescribed in the US. And it's prescribed here in various forms of Adderall or Ritalin. It's not exactly the
It's not
same, but
pure
it's
though.
much the
But
same.
yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
the same with heroin. Heroin's prescribed to people, and people don't go around robbing and things. So an awful lot of what we're afraid of is all linked to the whole culture of illegality and people using underground and not knowing what they're taking, and all the junk that's around and within what they're taking.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was
absolutely.
in the middle of telling you the six,
No,
the
yeah,
seven.
yeah, yeah. No, sorry. This is how 710 Sessions always operates. I distract and, it's like a Billy
Yeah,
Conley fucking stand up here, but we're good. Yep.
we're good. Okay, so I read out number one, which it was the scrapping of everything. Then I read out which actually is number six, which is introducing a new law, but it's managed by health.
Yep.
But
Okay.
now we're bringing all psychoactive drugs under the one umbrella, so that people who are using alcohol are now no different to the people who are using methamphetamine. They're all part of the
That
same umbrella act. And
that is crucial, isn't it?
it is because we are one.
That's a
We are one.
social thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Tom Scott says it in Rent's Too High, where he says, "Damn, I wish I could think of the lyrics off the top of my head." But it's all good if it's a prescription, you know.
This
Yeah.
idea of there being drugs and then there are these sort of non-drugs or not really drugs is so untrue. There's a guy in the UK called David Nutt, Professor David Nutt, and he's done three now. He's done a third one in Aotearoa. He did some research in 2009, 2011 in the UK, where he got a group of experts together and got them to did some research process where they had to rate the risks of harm posed by all these different drugs. He threw in alcohol and tobacco as well. And out of all the drugs that are currently used, alcohol came out the most harmful. And he's done it again in Aotearoa
Socially and stuff, or like how can you clarify when you say it's the most harmful? You've already said it's not the most dangerous to make, but you keep saying alcohol's the most dangerous, the most harmful, the most.
Yes.
Are you saying it's because this is what takes up our A&Es on a Friday and Saturday night? This is what a lot of domestic violence seems to stem from?
No,
Is this
it's
what
because of
heart failure, blah, blah, blah?
it's because of what the drug is. The drug does have that impact, but the drug itself is linked to cancer. The drug is poisonous. It damages your brain. It damages your heart. It damages your liver.
It's just a shit drug.
It does disinhibit people. It's also the worst drug to detox from. The withdrawals from alcohol can be very dangerous. You can have epileptic seizures from severe alcohol withdrawal. You can die through severe alcohol withdrawal. Alcohol also develops dependence as well, so you need more to get the same effect,
And
and you will have withdrawal.
this is the drug that you have personally chosen to produce.
That I use.
But you produce. You said you've got your
I
own.
produce. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, you're
So
right.
of all the drugs, so you're like, all right, which one should we shit on the most?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then of all the drugs,
That's
this is the one that you choose to produce. This is
yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. It's
Yeah,
another story. It's a slightly longer story because it's to do with my upbringing and my journey.
totally.
Uh, but equally,
Hmm.
I won't go into that conversation. I'm happy to another
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
it's all fine.
yeah.
But what I would say is the bottom line
Mm.
is that yes, and it illustrates that people who use drugs need to be free to use whatever drugs they want to
Oh
use.
yeah.
And my use of my drug is my business in that sense. Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean is
yeah.
that we should be leaving people alone.
Yep, yep.
It's my body, it's my choice, and
100%.
but I would say the same for somebody who uses methamphetamine or heroin or coke or whatever.
Right. But then also have the support there and available and ready for them should an issue arise, so they don't feel the social pressure of, oh shit, I can't tell anyone. But now they'll be able to say, oh shit, look at all these people ready to still love me, care for me, and understand me. And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and people who are using those other drugs don't get solid information either. I can get really solid information about alcohol,
yeah, yeah,
but
you
you
can make,
can't
yeah,
get, it's not
informed
easy to get
choices.
solid information about illegal drugs. As for a lot of people, like people might think that heroin's really damaging the organs of your body. Well, it doesn't. People might think if you take meth, you develop meth face. People might think if you take crack,
Of
you'll end
course.
up with babies that's
Is this not
uh,
what scheduling's all about? Is our safety? Is and you're just saying scheduling's meh? Like, give a fuck. It's not based on
making a
science.
drug on a schedule, making it a controlled drug makes it an uncontrolled drug. So when the government controls drugs, they don't control them. They make them uncontrolled because they go underground.
Yo, yep, 100%, 100%, hundred
So
percent.
that's why we need a new approach to drugs, and we need to put them under health. I'll go on to the
Please, yeah.
other
Sorry.
objectives. So I've already given one of the objectives, which is to ensure adult possession, cultivation, and production of all drugs is legal for personal use. And I explained there would be some regulations which would, but you don't want too many regulations because, like in parts of the US and Canada, they've got regulations where you can't be seen with a cannabis plant in public. So we need to have this new law not through a lens of prohibition. We need to have this new law through a lens of the way that we treat alcohol or the way that we treat caffeine or tobacco. We've got to stop seeing things through a prohibition lens. And
But
so when I say there would be some regulations, I would be really cautious about having over regulating in a very cautious way. We really, really need to be adult and mature and respect human rights here.
okay, just quickly, the chances of you, excuse my language, the chances of you fucking out on coffee and the chances of you fucking out on cocaine. I mean, big difference, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the chances of you getting in a bad way with alcohol is very different from you getting in a bad way with, say, tobacco or caffeine.
So that's why caffeine and tobacco can be on our shelves and cocaine shouldn't be on our shelves or wouldn't be on our
Uh,
shelves, yeah?
no, well, alcohol's on our shelves, and that's probably the worst thing you could go for, really.
Because of liver damage and stuff, and because of.
And because of dependence, yeah, and because
Okay,
it disinhibits people.
okay, okay.
And people can get addicted. It's got quite strong addictive properties as well. Uh,
Okay, and you can back that up with
look,
science because these are the
cocaine isn't.
arguments other
Sorry, go
people
on.
use against cannabis dependence and blah blah blah. But
Hey,
the
look,
science says different.
the thing about having it on your shelves
Mhm.
is where we want to make things available. this doesn't. I wouldn't support the idea that alcohol should be in our supermarkets. I would rather that people get their drugs from places where you do drugs, like bars or pubs, or from pharmacists. And so, if we start talking about seeing methamphetamine on our shelves, we get triggered into some prohibitionist sort of hard wiring where we start imagining children at the supermarket picking up methamphetamine off
Yeah.
the shelf.
Yeah.
It's not going to work that way, and it doesn't help us to think that way, really. We need to think of an adult way of properly managing this range of drugs, and within that range we include alcohol and tobacco. So, like, I wouldn't. The dairy by us has got a dirty great big sign out on the road saying "vape shop" or "vapes available
It's gross
here" or
out here.
whatever. I wouldn't allow that either. So I'm all for human rights, but I'm not. I'm against. I'm against trying to encourage people. It's a bit like betting. I don't mind people having a bet, but I can't stand the way betting commercial companies are in your face
It's
almost
gross,
at
eh?
every commercial when you're watching sports. So we
I
need to have
yeah.
regulations that will regulate commercial exploitation and advertising, and so there's a lot in this whole regulation business, which maybe people need to appreciate that, really, that we're not talking about advertising and freely available in supermarkets. What we're trying to cut out, what we're trying to do, is to enable adults who are currently being arrested and not knowing what they're taking and being afraid and consuming junk, to be able to go to a pharmacist, or maybe ultimately one day to a bar or something as an adult, and to purchase those drugs and know exactly what they're taking, but it's not going to be rammed down their throat through advertising or through billboards and whatever. But they'll know what they're taking, and that'll be a much safer way than the underground system that we've got currently.
Cool.
Okay, so that's that one. Number three would be, I think it's now the fourth one I've mentioned. It's number three on our list, but I've mentioned number six, so we're on to the
Yep.
fourth one. Dismantle all policies that reinforce drug prohibition. So we need to get shut of anything that is reinforcing drug prohibition. So what would that be? So
Lots of
that would be,
politicians.
say, go ahead.
Lots of politicians. You have to scrap a whole bunch of them.
Yeah,
Basically.
well, it's more the laws and the
Yeah,
policies,
totally.
So like, look, we would challenge drug driving laws, and we would say drug driving laws are need to concentrate on impairments. We
Yes.
are deeply concerned about people driving while impaired by drugs, but we are not happy with people being arrested for drug presence. Drug presence is not drug impairment.
No, 100%. 100%. You got some great memes for this. Yes.
So,
Yes.
so, 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 so that would be an example of a prohibitionist type of drug policy. We must have policies which aren't anti-drugs, that they are concerned. Yeah. So,
Okay.
okay. The fifth one would be to secure annulment for all criminal records and convictions that relate to adult personal possession, cultivation, or production. So, if you have personally grown or produced for your own benefit, let's say that you had MS, and you've grown your own cannabis and produced it all and whatever. Well, if you've got a record, that should be annulled. In other words, it should be completely removed from your record.
Okay.
That's
What
what
about a
we'd.
guy who was potentially, allegedly, maybe going to a concert and had a few ounces on him? Would you scrap that as well? He was
If that
taking
was for
them backstage,
personal,
allegedly, potentially
if it's
to
for personal use, I would do. And
well,
under the new
persons were going
law,
to use it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, under the new law, like I can make 40 liters of alcohol, I think I can make 100 litres. I think the law might say 100 litres. So we'd need to have fairly liberal, because we're not anti-drugs. It's not an anti-drug. It's about health and safety.
Okay. But you wouldn't scrap all convictions. That's what I was just
in terms of
pointing out there.
convictions.
You'd have someone look at every individual
We'd
one?
need someone
what?
to look at. We'd need to look at whether it was supply with intent to supply, or whether it was for personal use.
Okay.
But yeah, look, these are principles,
Totally,
and a lot of the detail.
Totally.
There needs to be a lot of work on the detail.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another one would be number 6 would be ensure that all drug policies are rooted in science, evidence, and uphold the principles. Sorry about my phone. I'll turn off.
No.
All drug policies are rooted in science, evidence, and uphold the principles of harm reduction and human rights. So that's the foundation by within which we grapple with these very practical ideas of what would you do if. It needs to be rooted in, experience, evidence, science. And then the final one would be, the 7th one would be to ensure that our drug laws and policies in Aotearoa respect the principles of partnership, protection, and participation within Te Tiriti or Watangi. So we want to respect the treaty.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Piss off if you don't. Straight up.
Cool. So that's what we're about. And we've got loads of people from very different backgrounds supporting that.
Absolutely.
But we're all volunteers with no funding.
Okay.
And but we've got organisations supporting us as well.
Excellent. Cool. Okay. And if you just Google Harm Reduction Aotearoa or Harm Reduction Coalition Aotearoa or HRCA.nz, you're going to find the website. You'll find donate. You'll find all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So my next question is, how do we get behind you? Because clearly all of this makes sense, right?
Yes.
How do we get behind you?
Well, I think one of the great ways that you can make a big difference is to persuade particularly drug users and drug using organisations that we need to unite together against prohibition. And we don't want to be pleading to legalise cannabis. We want to be pleading to legalise everything. If you plead to legalise cannabis because cannabis is a plant, because relative to all these other drugs, cannabis isn't the least harmful, but it's one of the lesser harmful or risky substances.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody in the world has ever overdosed from cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
There's no medical evidence of that.
Oh, cool.
Ever died from a cannabis overdose, I should say.
Yep.
So you could squeeze in possibly and get yourself on the top table with caffeine, tobacco, and alcohol and pharmaceuticals. But that does nothing to the system. The system is corrupt and damaging so many people. We need to unite together and scrap this entire system. And even where cannabis has been approved, in some countries, there's still very draconian rules about, you can't grow your plants if the public can see it. You can't grow more than X number of plants. You can't have a plant in public and it's all through a prohibition lens. So I think one of the things you can do is try and work to persuade people to unite against prohibition, because that is the demon, as opposed to trying to get things sorted for me and my group of people, or me and the drug that I use.
Yep, totally. Because I know a few of the homies out there have already started discovering the real science and magic behind mushrooms and psilocybin, and they're taking that incredibly seriously, and I really appreciate those people doing that.
And that's happened in Aotearoa, hasn't it? And it's good.
Yes.
There's research going on here.
It's great.
That will happen for all the drugs, I think. Obviously, it's already happened for cocaine, methamphetamine, amphetamine, and heroin. Those drugs are already widely used in pharmaceutical, and the medical profession.
Right.
But there's benefit we can learn, I think, from acid, from ecstasy, from a whole range of psychedelic drugs, really. Yeah.
Do you want to take acid? Do you want to do an LSD trip one day?
I don't mind. I am attracted to, perhaps one day I should try. You're sort of delving into me and my alcohol, which is fine. And look, the reason is I came from a very disadvantaged background,
Right.
very poor, deprived area, and struggled through the education system.
Right.
And given my background and my postcode in Liverpool, the chances of me ever reaching and becoming a social worker, which is what I wanted to do, were limited
Right.
because of the discrimination and the journey through poverty. And I just knew that I better not take drugs, because if I get a drug conviction, the chances of me breaking through out of the dire situation I was in would be difficult. And I certainly would have trouble becoming a probation officer. And so I was a probation officer, and I didn't want to get busted being a probation officer as well. And so I didn't try drugs later on. And then as an academic, fighting, so I've been campaigning against drug laws and prohibition really since about 1990, really, and
Right.
maybe it was really from the late 80s.
Yeah.
And then it gave me like a unique selling point that actually people can listen to me because I can say I've not used
Yeah. Yeah.
drugs.
But I'm
And
also I'm learned in the areas. Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
learning in the
Yeah.
and being also being an academic,
Yeah.
I didn't want to get busted as an academic as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
so I'm retired now, so I can do whatever I like. But
Totally.
I'm not that bothered really. I
Yeah.
would be interested. I would, from apart from the illegality, which is
I'll give a shit.
embarrassing and awkward,
Yeah.
and then partly from the position of not being able to stand here and persuade people,
Mm.
because I'm passionate about injustice and combating this.
Mm.
And maybe if I get done for illegal possession, then it sort of undermines my credibility a bit. So it's balancing my credibility against my personal
Very much so.
enjoyment of that I'm denying myself in a way. But if it was legal, I wouldn't have any qualms about trying any drug on personally.
I can't.
I don't believe in just one, just one taste or whatever.
I
And
can't.
I've dabbled with the most difficult drug of all, which is alcohol.
Yeah. Right. Right. I find it interesting because I can't help but draw the parallel between you saying I stuck to the legal drugs because I didn't want to jeopardize, and it's similar to the person where you pass them a joint and they're clearly fucking having a great time, and
Yes.
they say, oh no, I get tested at work, and they're on drugs that are going to flush out of their system nice and early or whatever. So you've made an informed decision on what drugs you do and what drugs you don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
I find that. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. It's another example of how awful prohibition is, really. I mean, I
Mm.
do feel sorry for the people who use cannabis and they get stopped and they used last week or whatever. It's just not, here's me. I could have a bottle of wine on a Friday night and go out
Absolutely.
driving on Sunday,
Mhm.
and I'll be fine.
Exactly.
And I had a bottle of wine on Friday, but it's Sunday. I'm okay. Where
Exactly.
somebody has, a spliff or whatever, has a pile of cannabis on Friday, they could test positive on Sunday,
I
even
know.
though they're not
Yeah.
under the influence.
Yeah. I know for a
It's
fact that I checked myself into a rehabilitation program at one point, and I had done 9 weeks. So what's that, like 50, 63, is it? Days or something like that. So I hadn't
Yeah, yeah,
had any cannabis for 63 days. And when
yeah,
when I peed into a jar or whatever, she said, yep, you clearly haven't had any recently, but it's still showing. It's
yeah,
still showing in your
yeah,
system after that
yeah.
long.
That's right. It does stay in your system for well over a month
Yeah.
easily. I mean, obviously it depends on how much you've been taking, but it can.
Mm,
There's plenty of research saying it can be in your system well over a
totally.
month. So you're evidence of 2 months. Yeah.
Totally. So I got it. So your whole thing before, you were saying we need to do this in an adult way. This thing needs to be done in an adult way. Okay. So I'm going to put in the screen, would somebody think of the children? You know, because I've looked up who voted no, blah, 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 blah. And people have put their name to it and said, I voted no to dope, blah, 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 blah. And a bunch of them are saying, think of the children, think of the children. So,
Yes.
Julian, think of the children. What's going on?
Well, I've written a piece which is on Medium. I can give you the link to it later.
Cool.
And it's called Our Children Deserve Better.
Ha.
So I'm thinking of the children, and I've written a short piece about thinking of the children.
Okay.
And our children deserve better drug laws. We have our grandchildren. They stay over here every Friday. One's 5 and one's 8. And I think of my children, my grandchildren.
Okay.
And I don't want them to grow up in a world where the illegal drugs that they will have available to them, because when we talk about legalization, we're not talking about introducing drugs into New Zealand. The drugs are here already.
Oh, hell yeah, they're here.
My grandchildren will be exposed to illegal drugs.
Yeah.
They'll be able to order them on their mobile phone when they're teenagers, just like they can order a pizza. So do I want my grandchildren to be able to be tempted or to consider using an illegal drug for which they could get arrested? And if they got arrested and got done for possession of an illegal drug, forget the harms that could be mixed in the drug because it's illegal. They don't know what's in it. But that isn't a drug harm. That's a prohibition harm.
Yep. And as I found out, it fucks their plans to travel in the future.
Well,
they
that's
won't be able to go to
say,
certain countries.
If they got a conviction,
it
could affect their job applications.
Hell yeah.
It could affect their housing applications, their insurance, medical insurance. That you'll struggle to get in the US if you've got. It could affect your relationships if, by the way, I've got a conviction for possession of whatever.
Yep.
You
have to wait in a certain line at the airport in the I've been a naughty person line. It's fucking this is prohibition,
So conviction, but also like if say they were offered or given from a friend, which is highly likely, it's quite likely they're going to be offered at some point, and they're going to see, have access to illegal drugs. Better that those drugs are legal rather than illegal. I think as well, when drugs are illegal, there is a sort of a greater temptation sometimes to do things which are illegal.
The rebellious stage of teenagehood and all that kind of shit. Okay.
But we've talked about all the risks of not knowing what you're taking, of not knowing the purity, of doing it in secret, of hiding it, of not being able to ask questions about it. I would rather kids have those issues eliminated, and they would be eliminated by legalization.
So, okay, so if drugs are going to be legal, are you going to put it on the public or on the parents to school the children and educate them so they can make informed decisions? And I'll follow this because I make the bold assumption that you're a good parent and your kids have respect for you and so forth. But we all know there's some pretty shit parents out there, right? And it's those kids that we need to have concern about, because our kids respect us and we can say to them, hey, this is a plant, respect the plant, blah, 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 blah. But these other ones who kind of don't have parents, who educates them?
Your question is as if drugs are not in the country. The drugs are already here, and those questions that you pose already apply in relation to tobacco, alcohol, and caffeine, and they are not easy drugs. It's not like alcohol could. In Professor David Nutt's framework, tobacco and alcohol appear in the top 6. Alcohol number 1, and tobacco in some of his research is around number 6, out of about 15 drugs. Okay,
so I'll take it back. Who is it on, the public or the parents, to educate kids? when it comes to making
Well,
informed decisions.
who is it? Who is it now with alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine? Is it the parents? Is it the public? Is it the government? It's a mixture of all of those things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the government has a responsibility to, and government isn't doing a good job on alcohol either, and it didn't do a good job on tobacco either. So we would want better regulation than what we see for alcohol and tobacco.
Okay.
And to some extent, better regulation for even caffeine, because like we say, oh, people don't get into difficulties with drinking coffee, but people do get into difficulties with popping caffeine tablets, and some people have died through taking too many caffeine tablets.
So
So, and
what's your solution there? Is that putting things on the
well,
packet to say be careful? What's the
yeah,
solution?
the solution is never to do with the police or the criminal justice system.
Damn
The
straight.
solution is always to do with health education, open conversations, excellent evidence and information, harm reduction information. So, so people perhaps taking caffeine don't realize if you take too much caffeine, it can actually kill you in vast quantities.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
totally.
and people perhaps don't appreciate that alcohol can kill you as well. I don't know if young people realize that as much as what they need to know. But I mean, so if we've got all these drugs, then parents need to know about it. Everybody needs to know about all these drugs. But it's not a new ball game. Those drugs are already here legally anyway.
But
And
then,
when we make them available legally, they're just better quality controlled, and they are now available through legitimate routes, but not through supermarkets or the dairy. They'll be there through probably the
yeah,
pharmacy.
okay. Because what does the argument go? Something like, you're going to make drugs more easily available to children. Which, I mean, this is true. I've had people say to me, hey, do you know where to get this specific drug, right?
Yes.
Because, you're in the know. And that would take that away for the kids. They'd just go down, they'd stand outside the store, just like we did with alcohol, and say, excuse me, sir, can you please buy us the fucking cheapest vodka? Pack of
Yeah, yeah.
cigarettes. Yeah. So, and now we're talking fucking LSD. Now we're talking real drugs now. We're talking,
Yep.
we're not talking joints anymore. We're talking
No, no.
cocaine. We're talking
That's
meth. We're talking, so
yeah, yeah.
think of the children, Julian.
Yeah.
How do we
With
play that?
yeah, the children are exposed to these things already.
No, hang on.
And so
No, not to this extent.
not
Like,
to this extent.
so,
No,
so yeah, they're not, cocaine is not readily available. It's available in certain circles, right? And then
yeah,
you're going to put the circle to just be the country. How does that work?
yeah. It wouldn't be easily available. It would only be available to adults,
No,
and it would
yeah,
only be
same
available
with
through a
alcohol.
pharmacy.
And then the dumbass goes and buys it and goes, oh, there you go, kids. Have a good one. I'm such a cool adult, aren't I?
Yeah,
Because he's 24 and he's a dumbass. So how does that work?
yeah,
We're
yeah.
talking real drugs now,
Yeah, yeah.
available to adults.
Well, alcohol is a very real drug. Alcohol is a very real drug.
It is,
So,
It's interesting the way I talk here. I'm still talking prohibition, aren't I?
yeah, yeah. No, you're fine. You play
Okay.
devil's advocate, and
Yeah.
it all needs to be worked through. Look, I think what we're having to balance here is that drugs and some drugs uh, pose greater risk than others, and it depends on the individual as well, as you rightly identify, like say kids or whatever,
Yeah.
maybe kids without parents and stuff.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
circumstances become more messy and difficult.
Mhm.
But what we've got to grapple with here is how do we manage harm in the country? And what we're looking at is massive harm caused through prohibition. Now, you will be able to, and members of the public will be able to, come up with situations where this isn't easy, is it now? There is a bit of a risk here. But what we're comparing is the vast harm that is being meted out to everybody who uses illegal drugs. So everybody who is taking, say, ecstasy hasn't got a clue what's in their drug. They might go to drug checking.
Yeah, we've got that, but yeah.
Well, basically, the harms of prohibition are vast. They are massive, and you come up with these. You can, although anybody in the public can come up with some ideas where there could be some possible increases of risk for some people. But so it's not perfect, but we can never eliminate all risk.
Okay.
So it's a bit like, say, introducing safety belts or whatever, and maybe it's a bad example because I don't know the whole mechanics of it. But each time you do something, there are some people who might be affected by that.
Oh, there was big
Might
pushback on
pose
safety
more
belts
risk
and
or
stuff.
whatever. It's
Absolutely.
always a question of balancing how big is all the harm being created by this arrangement, and what would the harm be if we had this arrangement. And I have got no doubt whatsoever that ending prohibition and legalizing drugs will eliminate vast harms. And we haven't touched on all the harms. You know, we need to think about the harms ecologically, the harms in wars and invasions in other countries. You know, we've got, because of the war on drugs, we've got glyphosate spraying over vast areas of Bolivia and other areas in South America. And we've got it in our own country. We've got the police spraying sometimes areas with so-called weed killer.
Holy shit.
And what is the ecological harm through vast spraying? The police are out in their helicopters spraying areas and searching for cannabis when arguably they should be actually catching criminals. So what is the knock-on effect of that? Where our police are not doing the jobs that they could be doing, but they're too busy with sniffer dogs at the universities. You know,
just so many
there's a case.
roll-on
Was it, I think
effects.
was it in Australia? But you know, no, it was a case in the UK just recently. The young girl's not been identified. She's a black woman. She's 15 years old, and the police were called into her school because the school suspected she smelt of cannabis.
God.
This 15-year-old girl was strip searched.
Oh.
A male police officer and two females took all her clothes off her as a 15-year-old black school kid. They had her bending over and they did a complete search of her body looking for cannabis.
What filth.
What I'm trying to tell you, what I'm trying to get across here is the awfulness of this prohibition regime. And we haven't touched on these civil rights and these issues that are going on.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so when you talk to me about, well, what about a young kid who hasn't got any parents, who might be able to get some LSD off their adult mate, who's going to pass it on to this 12-year-old child? That worries me. But equally, and I'm not happy about it, but in the big gamut of issues of the harms we can get rid of, you know, we can never, I mean, at the end of the day, that example can never be stopped. Because they could do that now if they wanted to.
Yeah, if they really wanted to seek it out, they can fucking...
Yeah. And people in those environments often have got more easier access to those networks anyway.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting you say it's just like, this goes far beyond my right to grow a fucking plant and smoke what I choose to put in my body.
Way beyond. Way
beyond this. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's you're right. You talk about the right to travel. People are being denied the right for employment, the right to healthcare, the right to insurance, the right to travel because they've got a conviction. I mean, I know of lots of women who've had kids removed because they use a particular drug, not because they're not good parents. But because they use a particular drug.
I want to talk to lawyers about that, about the ex lure, being like, oh, you use cannabis, I'm going to take your kids off you because, and it's like, what? How do we tell that person to politely fuck off? How do we, Yeah. Because people do. They use. I remember one point. I won't say who, but I was working for a security company. So my car looked, kind of official or whatever. The little bumblebee, I called it. And at one point I was rolling up in the kitchen at a party, and a girl came up and she was all like, drugs. And then she threatened me by saying, look, security's pulled up, you better put that shit away. And I turned and I looked out and I said, that's my car. The fuck are you talking about? But it was the fact that she was trying to hang it over my head. She was trying to be like, I'm moral, I can use the law against you. And it's like,
and people
yeah.
can.
Yeah,
People
exactly that. And this is why we need to change things, isn't it?
And people who don't have a lot of agency, people who don't have a lot of power, and that's why we go back to the working class, and we go back to Maori people, we go back to people with disabilities, whatever, people with difficult life journeys. They are more easily controlled and threatened and arrested.
Yes.
Whereas somebody who's like who's a businessman or whatever, and is up in court and they use methamphetamine.
Yeah.
And there's some people who've recently gone through court who've been businessmen and used methamphetamine. And lo and behold, they seem to just sail through with, a light conviction of some sort without any. But the law is enforced, disparity really. It's not equal.
I legitimately had a lawyer who was a QC at the time who said to me, you're lucky you're white and in the North Shore. If you were black and in Central, you'd be fucked. And I said, hey, cool, well, thanks for your candidness. Cool. That lawyer is now a judge. And so I hope that with that knowledge, he is doing something to change what he could see was corrupt and fucked. So you have this really cool, and honestly, I haven't read the whole thing because I can't pay attention that long. It's a lot going on. But you've got 75 myths here. The myth busting kind of thing. And one in particular jumped out at me. Myth 52. If we provide robust evidence, drug laws will change. Strong, reliable evidence. I'm not going to read your own shit back to you. But, and people, please go and read through this stuff. If we all read 5 each, we'll all, this is what we have just talked about is, hey, let's fucking provide science. Let's provide evidence. Let's talk about the truth and change the law. And now you've already said, it's not going to work. Even if we do tell the truth, no one's going to give a fuck. Money fucking, So what are we doing, Julian? What's going on? Like, how do we actually make change? Like,
well, we've been providing evidence for donkey's years. So for the last 20 years in particular, there's been so many inquiries and people keep providing evidence. But prohibition doesn't exist because people don't understand, or that it exists for vested interest.
So how do we burn it all down, man? How do we do we just throw Molotovs at the companies fucking or don't do that, people, please? But
the only way we're going to change this is because the people at the top in power, the parliaments and the MPs and all the people who benefit from prohibition. And we've got on our website a list of all those people on the different groups that benefit. I can run through some of them if you want me to, but ultimately they are people in power. And so the only way we're going to change this is basically ultimately through the ballot box and not through a referendum, because that's a whole contrived arrangement, but through campaigning and liberating people. People have been liberated around sexism. People have been liberated around disableism. People have been liberated about homophobia. People have been liberated around colonialism and racism. So we need to do the same with drug laws and prohibition.
So you're basically saying we need to say to our elected officials, unless you do this, no, not getting my vote.
No. Well,
there's
no point in us saying that because we're such a small group. We need to have these The conversation I'm having with you, I need to have with my neighbours and my friends.
Okay.
And we need to be taking this conversation everywhere because this is a no-brainer. This is evidence-based. We, we
But
are
then
creating
you're
so
talking
much.
about politics, and then you're talking. Nobody wants to talk about fucking politics, isn't it? The rule you don't talk about religion and politics at the dinner table.
No, we don't talk about politics. We start talking about our stupid drug laws.
That's
You know,
politics,
people are happy
laws.
to talk about, people are concerned about our approach towards COVID or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you could make that political if you want to say it's political.
Yeah. Okay.
People will talk about the state of our water and our waterways. People will talk
It's
about
all
climate.
politics, isn't it?
These are all, but every issue. If you want to, you can say, well, people don't want to talk about politics. We all want to talk about stuff that concerns us, and
Hmm.
so we can say, look, I'm worried about our kids. Our drug laws are bad for our kids.
Hmm.
Our drug laws are putting our kids at risk.
Mm.
There's loads of different angles we could take on this.
Right. You're not talking politics. You're talking about your kids. Talking about
Yeah,
safety. You're
yeah, yeah.
talking.
Well,
Yeah.
we're,
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
talking about
Okay.
issues that affect us in
Yeah.
life, and
Legit. Legit.
but what I'm saying is that this isn't going to change until we have a solid appreciation of the issues in the general public. But we haven't had these conversations in public.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we need to have these conversations in public. We need to take this to the streets, as it were.
Okay.
We need to stop being afraid of talking about drugs.
Okay. Okay. So that it's yeah, it's the we're afraid to talk about drugs. So one of the back in my trap days, back when I was selling 50 bags and whatever else I was doing, the I had a lot of teachers, a lot of teachers. High school teachers mainly, a few primary school teachers, but a lot of high school teachers come in and just fortnightly grab a 50, chill, relax, whatever, do their thing. They would be mortified if I mentioned, it would just be like, holy shit. So how do we encourage a teacher? How do we encourage someone who's scared of their job? Oh no, I'm breaking. How do you encourage someone to say, yes, I am breaking the law, and why should you give a fuck? Like, how do you?
Yeah,
It's a scary thing to do,
it
man,
is a
and I
scary
sure as
thing to
shit
do,
wouldn't do it.
and
I wouldn't risk my job. I
yeah,
understand that.
yeah, yeah. Professor Carl Hart in the US,
Hmm.
uh, he's a neuroscientist. Is it a neuroscientist? Uh, he's done a lot of research, but he uses heroin, and he's come out and he says people. He's written in his book, yeah. So he's a reform advocate, a man I've got a lot of respect for. He speaks and writes well. Professor Carl Hart,
And
HART.
so, and if you didn't know that about Carl, you'd be like, oh my God, this is a very upstanding professor of blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, oh,
Yeah,
by the way,
he wears his heart on his sleeve, so you probably learn quite
okay.
quickly. But
Yeah,
yeah, but
okay.
as an academic, he's well published and he's a professor.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you would be surprised. But look, you're right. It's really hard to come out. Uh, so what you're describing is the context within which we are in at this moment in history, and we are within a context of institutionalized oppression against people using the so-called wrong drugs. And we have got to find a way of breaking through that. So it will require some people to come out.
Yeah, because when you say
So
institutionalized, you kind of mean it's just built into society, isn't it?
I do mean that
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not just built into society, it's built into our laws and our policies.
Yes.
People are
Yes.
being arrested,
Yes.
people are being removed from their homes, people are being locked in prisons.
Well, at the discretion of the police, obviously. Yeah.
That's
So,
correct.
so
Yeah, yeah.
is that just is because I want to ask a lawyer this question as well. Do you reckon discretion is a good thing for
No.
a? Okay, because I was talking to someone the other day, and a police, they were going through a random checkpoint or whatever, and the police looked over and noticed that their rego was out. The warrant was all good, and they blew the breathalyzer and they were fine, and off they drove. So at that point, what we're saying is hard and fast. That officer has to say to them, rego's out, boom, 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 here's your ticket, because that is the law. I have no discretion here.
Yes.
Do we have to do it that way? Because
is
does
that
that
you
remove
allow prejudice and favoritism?
Exactly.
So,
and you allow that racism and shit to just flourish and thrive.
you do totally. So if I get stopped, I can come across, as middle class, as respectable, as one of them.
I'm well aware that I know jocks that have been fucking drunk drive, and the cop pulls them over and says, "Oh, fuck, jump in the back, mate, or jump in the front. I'll drive you home." No ticket, no nothing. And it's like, well, hang on, that's kind of a good thing. The officer did take a drunk driver off the street, did a favor, got him fucking home. But technically, fucking breaking the law.
That's right. Yeah. And some people are punished and other people get that treatment.
Exactly.
That's right. But just to go back to what you were saying before about coming out and about institutionalized.
Yes.
Because that was the same situation for homosexuality. In relation to homosexuality, in some countries, people were incarcerated if they were engaging in homosexual activities in public.
Yeah, it was illegal to be gay in New Zealand, wasn't it, till like 1970?
Yeah, I mean, I've been here 15 years, so I don't know all the history.
Yeah, totally.
In relation to homosexuality or whatever. But I know in other countries, people were arrested. You talked about a teacher wouldn't want to come out and say they use drugs.
No.
But if we roll back the clock, a teacher wouldn't want to come out and say that they're gay.
Legit. Probably, maybe not even today. Some would be still a little bit, hopefully more. But,
we've moved.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that how did we move on from making homosexuality legal?
Okay.
How did we move on to make homosexuality and gay marriage legal?
Yeah. Okay.
How do you get there?
Okay.
And you've got to have the conversations. You've got to protest and you've got to be activist, but we've got to change the public attitude.
Okay.
We have got a harder call on drugs. It's a harder call because there's vested interest.
Hell yeah.
So the banks have money laundering. So loads of people who do drugs have got lots of cash. They'll stick it in the banks, and the banks, HSB in the US, were taken to court. There's a link to it on our HRCA website when we look at vested interest. There's a link to the HRCA inquiry because they were challenged by the government in the US because they had millions, if not billions, of money laundered money, hidden away in the banks and stuff. So that's one example. The police can confiscate possessions now and use that money as a fund.
Oh, I know.
So
it just gives them incentive,
houses,
Yep, to go and steal
boats.
people's stuff. I hate that. It's
And
just like, oh, gross.
But also the police can make a good argument for resources. Customs and excise can make a good argument for resources. The politicians like it. They can be passed money via the alcohol industry or the pharmaceutical industry or the tobacco industry. But equally, they can have a rant about drugs and how we're going to crack down. So they can create an enemy within, and we're gonna get tough and we're going to stamp on these druggies. But also the druggies are a great excuse. So like in say San Francisco or Vancouver, there's lots and lots of homeless people, but a lot of those homeless people use drugs. But they say, it's drugs that's causing the homeless problem. And so drugs are a great excuse for politicians, and they're a great thing for the media as well. So there's all these people who buy into this whole discourse. So that's why we say HRCA, changing the narrative on drugs. We need to change this narrative.
Okay.
We need to get the truth out there and to stop this sort of sloppy science, which isn't full of propaganda and misinformation.
Okay.
But it's almost like as I said earlier, we are institutionalized and it is embedded. It's in the media all the time. The propaganda. It's in the peddled through our laws and it's peddled through our policies, but we've also been imbued with it as humans, So there'll be people that who've got the wrong information about heroin. Despite
Yeah.
them being users of cannabis,
Yep.
they've got completely false information about methamphetamine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not criticizing them. I'm trying to illustrate
Totally.
how imbued we all are with all this misinformation and propaganda.
Sorry, what does that word mean? Imbued.
So imbued, it's within us. It's been put in within us,
and we almost don't realize it's there. It's just it feels natural in a sense.
Like brainwashed, really.
Yeah.
We've been brainwashed.
Okay. Yep.
Sorry,
I often say things and then double check what I just said.
Yeah, I do too.
Just to make sure, is that what I've been, is this the truth?
Yeah,
is this what I've been led to believe? Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, so you're clearly all about legalization.
Yep.
Decriminalization, is that just like changing the black market into a more grey market and it's still just murky and fucking ugh? And so decriminalization is not the way, right?
Decriminalization we could do tonight. The government could decriminalize drugs tonight. And if they did, I would give them a thumbs up and say, well done. It's a quick and easy thing we can do. So what we would do is say, as from tonight, anybody caught with less than this weight amount of drugs, we regard that as personal use. The police are not allowed anymore to arrest anybody for that. We'll decriminalize it. It's still an offence, but the police no longer arrest people for it. People are going to just say, oh, okay, I can see you haven't got too much. Just look after yourself, mate. Take care. And they might have a decriminalization where they say, if we actually stop you 3 times, we might actually have to take some action against you.
But at that point, the police officer hasn't used their discrimination, whatever they've used, actual discretion. Sorry, discretion. They haven't used discretion. They've used the written law as it is, which says leave that person alone.
Decriminalization is a good move, but it's not
a step
the end
on the
point
way
you want to get to.
Brilliant. Okay. Because I was like, I can hear these arguments, and I'm like, I don't know, man.
Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with it.
Cool.
I'll tell you what's wrong with it. Portugal did it, by the way, almost 25 years ago. They decriminalized all drugs. Portugal decriminalized all drugs about 25 years ago for personal possession.
Yes.
And what they found is that when you look at the neighbouring countries in Europe near to Portugal, use of illicit drugs in Portugal was no greater than the neighbouring countries. So that tells you that if people are no longer are afraid of being arrested, it doesn't mean that more people use drugs.
Nothing changed.
So this business of like, if we legalize drugs, somehow other people, there's no evidence that there's an increase in use. But that's a separate point. To answer your question originally about decriminalization and legalization, the problem with decriminalization is that people still don't know what they're taking. They don't know the strength of what they're taking. You've still got a big network of drug cartels, and the drug cartels at the very top of the pyramid are pretty tough cookies. So if you go back and you look at who's supplying cocaine and methamphetamine or whatever, and you can only manage these multi-million businesses through guns, baseball bats and knives or whatever. You can't manage. You can't go to consumer rights or take someone to court or contact the police because somebody's run off with $10,000 or $50,000 of yours when you're running an illegal business. So decriminalization means that all the supply is illegal, and that means that all the business people are criminals, and it can get quite nasty. But you don't know what you're taking either.
Not all of them are criminals. There are some people out there providing facilities to the public.
By definition,
by definition,
don't get me wrong.
But they're not baseball bat and guns criminals. But
Just to agree with you here is that there's a lot of people who supply drugs and grow drugs and whatever who are good people and decent people, and they wouldn't rip anybody off.
Good job.
And so I'm not suggesting that people who do things are bad people, but I'm saying if you're running a multi-million-pound business, then that can get quite nasty because it's hard to
Agreed.
run a business
Agreed.
based on being kind to one another when you've got no legal recourse.
So if you attack the misuse of drugs and blah, 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 hang on, is there evidence to suggest that the drug game is indeed run by the gangs? Are the drugs run by the gangs?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Cool.
Look, I don't want to talk about New Zealand,
No, in general.
but in general,
Yeah.
without doubt.
Okay.
Without doubt.
So
Yeah.
when
It's run by cartels. You're talking about massive business here.
will they go legal? Or are you threatening cartel business with your proposal? Or do you, in your business proposal, will cartels be able to legalize their industry? Will be able to tax them on their shit? Or,
There's no reason why anybody can't. If there's a business for producing, they should be involved in the business. If they can put themselves up as a proper business, there's no reason why they shouldn't run
no
businesses.
reason these underground cartels shouldn't be able to come into the light and produce their product as a legitimate business.
So long as they jump through all the hoops of legal, then why not?
Haha.
They need to just do things properly. I mean, why can't person A
Yep.
do something decent?
100%. 100%. So quick touch there. So you've touched on licenses, right?
Yes.
So how would that kind of work? Would it be if you want to produce in a commercial sense, you'll need to license? And if, I'm more focused on my right to grow a plant.
Yes.
So, that's kind of what I'm focused on here. And you've talked about licenses, and I'm like, I don't want to pay some dude to clip the ticket.
No,
It sounds like some
right.
colonization crap.
Yeah, I haven't got to pay anybody to make 40 litres of alcohol.
Cool.
So
Okay.
look, this is a very important discussion, but it's a discussion which we can get into detail, but I think the detail needs to be worked out. But I think what we should do is talk about principles rather than the details. But I appreciate that the detailed scenarios
Yeah.
help to illustrate principles.
Okay.
But the principle is we need to look at all the other drugs in a similar way that we look at alcohol.
Okay.
So
Okay.
look, what we don't want to do, and I think the other side is, the other principle would be, is that legalization needs to do away, as far as it can do, with as much illegal market as it possibly can do. So there's no point. I think. So I saw a piece about cannabis in in North America, and they were saying the illegal market is thriving in cannabis.
Yes, because the legal market's shit because of all the regulations and blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. So why would you have all these regulations? We have got to have a legal market that can compete very well with the illegal market. So that means you can't make people jump through why are you making people jump through all these hoops? We've said this is your body, your choice.
No, for
this is
safety.
a human right.
But you make people jump through hoops because then it's a public safety issue, isn't it? And that's what the hoops are about. They're public safety issues, isn't it?
But only if there is a risk to the public.
Because this is why I want to talk to the people handing out the licenses in New Zealand and say, what are licenses about?
Yeah, well, people would say, look, people can find arguments on public safety, but if you wanted to, you could start having a license before you can go up and down the staircase, because there's statistics to show that people, and particularly elderly people, elderly people fall down the stairs, and then that creates a burden on the health service for hip replacements and for this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that old people have to have a license to be able to go up and down the staircase. So I'm giving you a bizarre.
No, I love it. I
silly
love it. This is
example.
data-driven information. I love it. This is
Exactly.
Yep,
You're with me.
Perfect.
So we want to reduce risk.
Yes.
So let's reduce the risk of people falling down the stairs. So what I'm saying is that we've got to be adults. We've got to respect people's freedom, and we come from this basis. So if you want to say that some people need to have a license, I don't think anybody should have a license to be able to use a particular drug. I think they need to be an adult, and I think they need to be able to get the appropriate information from the pharmacist. But I never had to get a license to use alcohol. Are you suggesting we should now introduce licenses for people to use alcohol?
Definitely not.
No, well, why not?
Definitely not.
Because there's risks involved there. It's actually a very addictive drug that damages the body. Surely they should need a license. So this is and then what about other things, like what about fast foods, and should people really have to undergo some interview before they can go through fast foods because we've got an obesity problem and stuff? And
sorry.
Don't get me wrong, we do need licenses for production of certain drugs.
Yeah, okay,
and we perhaps need licenses for social supplying.
And this is because of standards and making sure that you don't put shit chemicals into your products, and that's what that's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're selling or passing on, then licenses make some sense.
Totally.
Having said that, I go to the market and I buy jam from the market.
Yes.
The woman I buy the jam from in the market hasn't got to have a license.
Of course not. You talk to her, you trust her, you're like, yo, this tastes good, and she hasn't put any shit into her product.
So all I'm saying is that we sit down, the group of people sit down around the table with these sort of principles about bodily autonomy, about harm reduction, about human rights, about looking about the way that we've managed alcohol. And then you start thinking about, okay, then how would we manage these drugs? As opposed to an institutionalized mindset, which is full of propaganda and misinformation about dangerous illegal drugs. And then with that headspace, making laws and licenses. And that, for me, would be you'd have your head full of misinformation and propaganda, which is why we've got those 75 myths, so that people aren't looking at the issue with jaundiced misinformation. So there are issues to take into account, you're right, but if we get too strict on it, we're going to create an illegal market that will thrive.
If we're too strict on licensing regulations and all that kind of stuff, people won't enter into said market. Yeah, okay. And you've because politicians need to be involved in this.
They will. They need to agree it ultimately. They need to be on board, and
okay.
But they're not. I don't think they're going to do this for a long time because there's too much pressure and vested interest.
So the public pressure needs to be more than the vested interest pressure.
Our pressure needs to be more than the vested interest. Well, if our pressure was great enough from the public, then they would be worried about losing their seats. They would be worried about not getting elected.
Yeah.
And so they will start to then act. But we need to see ourselves as we need to see the issue as a form of oppression, similar to other forms of oppression, like homophobia or racism or sexism. And we need to think in our headspace around how have those people changed the thinking around woman, around Maori, around homosexuality. How's that thinking been changed? And we need to set about changing the thinking in public.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that's happened in those groups is that people have stopped internalizing the oppression. So by internalize the oppression, years and years ago, a woman might say to herself, people like me should never be dentists or doctors or judges or MPs because it's not for people like me. They've internalized it. They've bought into it because they've been brainwashed. Now, I think a lot of people who use drugs have been brainwashed, and the public have been brainwashed
100%.
into thinking like we need to tread very carefully here. We mustn't ask for too much. We shouldn't ask for legalization, or maybe we should just ask, would it be possible to legalize medical cannabis?
Yeah.
And I think we should be on the front foot, not on the back foot. We should be confident. We shouldn't be ashamed. We shouldn't be embarrassed. We shouldn't be groveling and asking, please, sir, could you just throw a few crumbs off the table?
Yeah.
And we'll be very grateful. Do you know, we're so grateful. I'm so grateful now that magic mushrooms are available from one psychiatrist who will prescribe them to people that he knows and trusts. We're stepping forward, folks. This is a real step. This is not a stepping forward. This is groveling and being grateful for crumbs under the table. This whole thing is the whole system is obscene and awful, and we should be angry and annoyed and bothered about it and trying to do something about it, as opposed to being grateful because medicinal cannabis is available if you've got enough money to pay for it. And most people haven't got that sort of money.
Damn straight. I think you just made a bunch of people emotional with that one, because it is, man, we get made to feel like we are less than 100%. We are stoners. We are whatever. Your opinion doesn't matter. You probably have a shit memory of events, blah, 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 blah. We are made to feel less than. And when you say, don't grovel, demand,
totally.
That's empowering, and thank you for saying that. Yeah. Awesome.
I passionately believe it.
Cool.
And I think women would have been the same years ago, and black people would be the same. Under slavery in the US, there'd be black people who would have said years ago, "Well, I'm just really glad to live in that shack, and be, work on the farm or whatever." I don't think we should ask for too much. If we ask for too much, they might beat us more. Now, I understand, but what I'm trying to say is it's about power, and it's about being more. It's about, where I'm coming from is I see that this as a great atrocity, a great inhumanity, and it's not okay to sit quiet and to just ask for a little bit off the people in power. I mean, like when in the apartheid in South Africa, Nelson Mandela and that they didn't say, "Excuse me, we've got the South African apartheid. Would it be okay if you just perhaps let the Asian people come into the cafes, let the Asian people use the buses at the front or whatever?" They wanted to scrap the entire apartheid system,
which is needed, right? Yeah. And just like you're saying, we need to scrap the entire system.
But in one sense, the regime on drugs is like a drug apartheid. You've got these drugs which are privileged and promoted and peddled, and then you've got these other drugs where people are punished, incarcerated, stigmatized, and made to feel the way you just described to me.
Yeah, damn straight. And
it's not right.
No.
You just you prefer to use a different drug to me.
Damn straight. Yeah, for sure. Okay. I tried your drug. It's all right.
It's okay. You shouldn't be punished for it. You shouldn't be made to feel stigmatized or different.
No, not at all. So, Julian, what do you know of the current medicinal cannabis market in New Zealand? Are you aware of like Canna Clinic and all those kind of things popping up?
Not a lot, really. All I know is it's a messy, complicated system, and it's difficult. And if you're a user and you've got a medical condition, if you ain't got the cash, it's really horrible for you.
Totally.
And so people are buying illegally and self-medicating, which is what they've done for years. But it's just appalling. It's just appalling. It should people when it was going through, I was arguing that people should be allowed to grow their own, and that should have been there from the beginning.
Okay. So should a doctor be involved in my drug use?
I haven't got a doctor involved in my drug use.
Cool. Okay.
My drug use is alcohol, and I haven't. The doctor's not been involved. The doctor will say something, how much alcohol are you using? If I go and see the doctor, they often ask me about my drug use, but they're not involved. And if they asked me, they wouldn't arrest me. They'd just simply give me health education.
Okay.
So I'd hope if all drugs were legal, they'd do the same.
Okay. So doctor shouldn't be involved with your alcohol. Doctor shouldn't be involved with my cannabis.
No.
What about the homies' ADHD medication? What about the homies' mood stabilizers, drugs, blah, blah, blah? What's where is the line of where does a doctor get involved?
It doesn't have to be a doctor either, to be honest. I think I used to be a drugs worker, and so I've sat with, I've been in prisons and rehabs with people and stuff, detoxes. And my take from seeing hundreds and hundreds of people with chronic addiction issues is that it's not primarily a medical issue. It is a medical issue to a point, but it's a social issue, it's a cultural issue, it's a structural issue, it's a psychological issue. So it needs sort of a holistic approach really.
Yeah, totally.
So I would hate it to be a doctor, to be honest, because of their limited training in the social psychological sphere really, and the structural sphere of inequality and poverty, racism. These other issues intersect with addiction. So I'm not ruling out medical people, but I'm just saying that it shouldn't sit in the medical profession.
Yes, you'd almost prefer someone with a PhD to guide me through it than an MD to go, not
a PhD, but I just prefer somebody who's got, maybe lived experience, who's got some skills or qualifications in counselling, than somebody who's a medic. But look, I wouldn't want to pit one against the other. I'm just trying to say it's a holistic issue.
Cool.
And so I wouldn't say that if we legalise drugs, people have got to go and see a doctor. I would basically just say that you don't need to go and see anybody. If you've got an issue, we should have, a network of support services.
Okay.
I mean, maybe we should set up some, drug support services, which would incorporate alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, and all the other illicit drugs. So maybe we just have a much more user-friendly support services, which are much more around harm reduction and health education, and less about getting people off drugs.
And Odyssey House is obviously on board with you, so they're not about the complete abstinence approach or anything. They're about the realistic approach. Which
they realise all the harm caused by prohibition.
Okay.
Hey, and look, the whole, the drug prohibition has ruined our drug treatments as well as our drug education. So drug education's been screwed, but so has drug treatment. Because if I have a problem with, say, alcohol, and I go to my doctor or I go to somebody for help, they don't say, you need to give up tobacco as well, You need to give up caffeine as well. They don't tell me to give up those drugs. They don't say you've got to be abstinent from all the other drugs if I've got an alcohol problem. But when it comes to illicit drugs, the line, because of prohibition, is that if you've got a problem with methamphetamine, you must never take ecstasy or cannabis. There's no relationship between methamphetamine and ecstasy and cannabis. Why are you telling somebody they've got to give up cannabis or ecstasy when they've got a methamphetamine problem?
Mm.
So if you've got a problem, if you've got a problem with this drug, that's the drug you need to give up, or any other related drugs, unless you want to give up all drugs, which is fine. But all drugs would mean all drugs, not just illegal drugs.
Okay.
So I'm trying to create a rational, sensible approach
Yeah.
to issues,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
I'm saying that prohibition has screwed up treatments as well.
Okay. And when you say you've got a problem with this drug, does the research generally show that it's not the drug, that it's the problem? It's the childhood trauma. It's the whatever going
Yeah.
on. Is that
Yes, it does. It
generally what
does.
the data shows?
There will be a whole pile of people whose problem is the drugs. So we're not saying that you can't get a drug problem. You can get a drug
You
problem.
you could
And the
totally get
drug,
a drug. Drugs can be the problem.
yes.
Cool.
But for the majority of people who are really struggling to overcome the use of the drug and it's causing them problems, I've written about this, so I've published on it, and it was really my PhD.
Okay.
Was arguing that it's really the whole history of structural inequalities. So the pathways into chronic drug use where people just can't control themselves, it's only a very small proportion of people who use drugs that ever end up in that place. The pathways into that place are nearly always people who've been physically or sexually abused,
Yeah, fully.
or people who have been in a very deprived childhood environment where they might have other difficulties to do with, say, learning difficulties, such as dyslexia or ADHD, which they never got addressed. And they went through the education system always being excluded or always being outed for not progressing or whatever. Or people who've just been through some very traumatic environments, through seeing domestic violence or physical violence, or just some really bad parenting experiences where they've been left on their own or homeless.
So
So
most of these
basically,
people just
what you
need a
find,
hug instead of a punishment or anything like
yeah,
that. They literally just need a good hug, told they're loved, and to work through whatever's going on.
yeah, people, and then those people have often, in their adolescence, found no pathway through to adulthood. There's no legitimate pathway for them to find security, stability, adulthood, independence, employment, accommodation. And then often they use drugs. Or the other one is people with mental health issues.
Totally.
People who've got mental health issues can self-medicate
Yeah.
and cope with voices and cope with anxieties by using drugs.
Yeah.
But they're self-medicating. But then it becomes difficult because when they go through the system, people will say it's the drugs that's caused them this. So often we're treating people's chronic drug use, but the chronic drug use is their way of coping with chronic problems.
Yeah.
But unless we deal with their chronic problems,
Yeah.
so if their chronic problem is that they've actually never fitted in with society,
Yeah.
they've never found a way through adolescence to adulthood, and now they're 28 or 35, and they've been in and out of prison all that time, and they've used drugs because, well, the other side is that is actually wheeling and dealing in drugs is a way of having identity and purpose
Oh
and
yeah.
routine.
And
So
community.
if you can't find employment, if you can't find status, if you can't find a way of belonging to anywhere,
Oh yeah.
you can become a runner, you could become a dealer, you can be busy, employed, you might be using it at the same time, but all of a sudden your mate down the road who wasn't like you and he's exhausted working, doing whatever, you're exhausted because you've been busy now. But he gets his rewards from money from the pay packet, but you get your rewards from your gear. And so uh, a lifestyle where you can't find anything in society, where you can't find a niche, that lifestyle can be found. You can busy yourself and find identity, but also just block out and keep yourself busy and occupied. So I can give you links to stuff written about that as well, really. Yeah, but
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's true. What you're saying, you were originally saying to me about, are unmet needs the real cause for a lot of chronic addiction, and that's right. A lot of people who are chronically addicted have got lots of unmet needs.
Hmm.
And we need to meet those needs. We need to address the underlying issues as opposed to getting them off drugs.
Right. Yes, because, well, I mean, in fact, personal experience, I've checked myself into rehabs and done all the rest of it, so I've lived this. And just recently, I've found a counsellor, a therapist, a person to talk to, that I smoke cones. And not in their office clearly, but when we do a Zoom call and stuff, I try to be very respectful and not just punch cones completely, but
Yeah, sure.
I'll have
I
a
mean,
couple. Yeah.
sometimes when I do these interviews, if it's in the evening,
Hmm.
I'll have a glass of wine with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, for sure. For
It's
sure.
not dissimilar, is it?
No, no, yeah. I guess that's there. This is the whole. It's really interesting because in one respect we want to pull cannabis and drugs and say, we treat alcohol like this, can't we treat cannabis like this? And then in another respect it's like, well, alcohol doesn't have any fucking amazing medical benefits to it, and cannabis has, I mean, the list goes on, yeah? So it's interesting when we say we want to treat drugs all the same, but
I
I mean,
mean,
it's a fruit
yeah,
salad.
yeah. We can't treat all drugs the same because they're not all the same. They're actually
Mm,
very different, and they have very different risks and very different outcomes. So we know that the psychedelics are different to the painkillers, which are different to the stimulants, which are different to the depressant drugs. So they are all different, but we need to treat them the same in terms of human rights.
social and human rights, and that's
Yeah,
what the
yeah,
real
yeah.
issue kind of here is.
Anyway, we've been talking for over 2 hours now, so I
Yes,
enjoy talking, but I better go and have some tea.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, no, thank you so much. Everything that we've talked about is really, really cool. I'm going to put in the links to your WordPress, I think it is, and then the Harm Reduction Coalition, and I'm hoping that everyone is able to get along, read, and donate and support. So the biggest thing we can do is basically just talk honestly,
Yeah,
openly to each other, to our aunties, uncles, whānau, everyone.
yeah,
Don't be ashamed.
and educate ourselves with
Yeah,
a different narrative around drugs, basically.
cool.
And pass that different narrative and challenge in a gentle way,
Hmm.
like you and I have had conversations this evening,
Hmm.
but keep challenging in a gentle way with evidence and with clear rationale why we need to see these things differently.
Yeah,
I mean, people could join HRCA. That would be cool as well. We really appreciate people's support.
absolutely.
Yeah.
If we give you money, what's it going to go towards?
The running of our website,
Yep.
Google Suite, hosting a website, yeah, PayPal, whatever. We
Just
have an infrastructure. We've got nothing else to spend our money on. We're going to try and run a 1 day event to mark the Misuse of Drugs Act. So there will be some money that'll be needed to. So it's 50 years of the Misuse of Drugs Act in autumn, maybe October, November.
oh, okay,
So we want to mark that as a time to remind us how much we need to get rid of this stupid act because it does so much harm and good.
okay. So
So if we do that, we're going to need money to hire a room in the city centre and to have publicity and to have refreshments and whatever. Yeah.
awesome. Okay,
And maybe if we have some speakers, we might need to pay for some speakers to come over or whatever, or to
okay.
attend. Yeah. So stuff like that. But yeah.
Excellent, excellent. People
But
just always want to know
not a
where their
single
money's going.
penny, not a single penny has gone to anybody in HRCA. Every single one of us has not received anything.
Yeah.
So
No,
we don't
yeah,
have any income or we
yeah.
don't have any expenses either. We haven't claimed anything.
Okay. Okay, cool. I mean, you seem like a top bloke. I definitely want to talk to you again if you're keen to talk some more. We seem to be on the same page of,
Yeah, I've enjoyed chatting to you. I hope I haven't rabbited on too much.
Absolutely not at all. Not at all. This is absolutely fantastic, and I really appreciate your time.
You can edit anyway.
I absolutely can and will. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, thanks again, Julian. I appreciate your time, and yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't catch your name. I've got Daze as your. Do I call you Daze?
I just go by Daze. That's
Daze. Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
Choice.
Nice to speak to you as well. Good to meet you. You're a good man.
Awesome. Cheers.
Yeah, take care.
Cheers. So, fuck the crumbs. Let's flip the table and start fresh. Is that really what needs to happen? Or will that just create a really big mess? Drop a comment below and get involved in the conversation. But please remember, if you want your plate to have any weight at this table, bring your facts, not just your feelings. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and share. Love and light to you all. We out. Awesome session. Thank you so much. Cheers.